I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Going back to the top story, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a roadshow with UAE President on the eve of Vibrant Gujarat Summit, meets other world leaders and global CEOs, also inaugurates a trade show. Joining me are Dr. Mukesh Aghi and Ms. Tejashree Shah. Dr. Aghi is the CEO and President of US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. It's an independent and non-profit organization headquartered in Washington, D.C. Dr. Aghi, tell us a bit more about US-India Strategic Partnership Forum and also your first impressions about the Vibrant Gujarat Summit this year.
Well, the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum was launched in 2017, focused on building a strong partnership between India and the United States, be it geopolitical, economic, technological, people to people. And we are leading today the largest number of US companies into Vibrant Gujarat. And the energy, the promise of India, the amount of engagement we're seeing is tremendous. In fact, we should call this Vibrant India event rather than Vibrant Gujarat, because we're talking investment all across the country itself. But more important, you have to understand, while the world seems to be in turmoil, we have two wars going on, issues in Red Sea, India stands out as a resilient democracy, a stable democracy, and more important, an economy which is growing 7+% on an annual basis, creating market opportunity to US companies, plus providing de-risking of its operations from China into India itself. So we are excited about the event, and we are engaging quite strongly both with the central and local government itself.
How would you describe India-US ties under Prime Minister Modi's leadership in terms of trade and investments in particular?
Well, when you look at the largest investors into India are US companies. And these investments may be coming directly or through other offshore accounts, but US companies are the largest investors. You have to understand, you have a prime minister who basically has leveraged the diaspora all across the world. And you have around 5 million Indian Americans in the US who are in a very, very pivotal positions across companies and also on the government side. The Indian Americans make only 1.5% of the US population, but they generate almost 6% of the GDP. So what we are seeing is a very strong interest by US companies under the effort by Prime Minister Modi to keep on coming in. And whenever he comes to the United States, he meets with all the CEOs, or when our member company CEOs come into India, he makes an effort to meet with them. So there is a sense of buoyancy about India. There's a sense of optimism about India. And there is a sense of opportunity of a $4 trillion economy, which will go into a $10 trillion economy. And how do we get the big share of the pie for the US companies? So the effort put in by Prime Minister Modi is showing results which are both mid-term and long-term going to be positive in the US-India partnership.
Dr. Aghi, I want your take on another related issue. Now, Prime Minister Modi has met with world leaders and CEOs of global corporations ahead of the summit. How do you view the Prime Minister's outreach to foreign investors? Is there scope for, say, for instance, doing more in sectors such as semiconductors, ports and logistics, and even education?
Well, our experience is that the Prime Minister, every time he comes to the US, he meets with the US investors. In fact, when he was on a state visit to the United States, we hosted him at Kennedy Center, and we had 1,100 plus business leaders basically connecting with him and committing to coming to India. You have to understand, it's not just about investment, it's also about technology transfer. The effort put in by Prime Minister Modi and the government shows that the effort to bring in GE engines, to talk about AI, to talk about quantum computing, you have a leader who has considered one of the most popular leaders in the world, and now be able to talk technology, be able to talk about education, be able to talk about energy partnership. So what we are seeing is In the last trip Prime Minister took, over 103 different agreements were signed between the two countries, all the way from education to student transfer to quantum computing to partnership mission to the moon itself. So I think what we are seeing is a tremendous amount of effort put in by this government. But more importantly, the end result is we are seeing transfer of technology, transfer of capital coming to India in a very, very strong fashion.
You spoke about optimism and buoyancy in the way America or American industry looks at India. Talking about perceptions, is the U.S. industry bullish in India? In terms of, if I were to ask you, what is your wish list for the immediate term in terms of policies or partnerships?
Well, the U.S. industry is absolutely bullish on India. You have to understand there are multiple factors which are playing into that. Number one, China. Basically, every boardroom is asking, what is your China plus strategy? How do you de-risk your supply chain from China? And India plays that pivotal role itself. Number two, India will become a large market for these companies. Classic example is Apple. 3 years ago, Apple was producing nothing in India. Next year, it will produce 25% of iPhone 16 in India for the rest of the world itself. So what we are seeing is a tremendous momentum. And I think it's important to understand that if you can take the reforms we have seen in Gujarat to other part of India, be able to move in much more transparently into policy making, you will see much more acceleration of investment coming in. India has taken a leaps bound of ease of doing business when you compare last 10 years and now. There's always room for improvement, and I think you'll see a momentum picking up once this government comes back in next year's election itself.